If you think building human connections online matters, you are definitely in the right place. If you don't, then you should definitely click off somewhere else. It is literally the future of business. And I got my man Josh Lee here. He has a boatload of followers on LinkedIn. I actually met him in a few different clubhouse rooms that we were running. And you really, real recognizes real. You see practitioners that are going out, building community, doing it in a real way. His background is super interesting, though, has run millions of dollars worth of creative in the digital space. So I know that's something people are going to want to know about. Where I'm going to be super curious is how does that translate into human connections and scaling? But Joshua, welcome to the Prime People podcast.
Hey, just man, really appreciate it. Excited to be here. I mean, look, I was listening to music in the background, just kind of dancing, getting ready for it. So, I'm excited to see where the conversation goes. And like you said, I mean, from Clubhouse days, being able to go through, I mean, the good thing is, even if we don't have our video on here, you and I at least both know how to be able to, hold a room and hold a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, well, like I said, real, recognizing real, I always try and get around practitioners, right? And I see people on an app like Clubhouse, for example, as a stream of consciousness, working out ideas, putting them into practice. And then when I started digging into you, I remember I tried to book something a while back. We both got busy, things happened, but you were on my list. And I'm very tactical that like, no, I definitely want to pause, dig into his brain, see what he's thinking about. And actually, I think the timing's perfect because from say peak Clubhouse to today, things have evolved even more. We're going into Web 3.0, but let's dig into your background first, just for context. So I guess, where was Joshua Lee born and how did you fall into digital media?
Yeah, no worries, man. We go through that. I mean, I'm a Texas boy, born and raised, right? Like, so, I grew up in Texas. I live in Austin, Texas now. So, but I probably don't play the whole thing of, oh, he's a Texan, kind of play. I mean, like I live in Austin, being able to go through, raised by two amazing parents. And I mean, like you talk about how we got from then to now. I mean, hell, my mom will tell you that, I was selling candy back from my lockers, back in, grade school, like, profit margins were amazing. My parents would buy the candy and then, I would, I'd sell it to my friends out of my locker and it was great. I only overextended myself once where my mom's from Germany. So I remember doing this, like social studies or whatever, like, where are you from? And so I was like, oh, I'm going to bring in non-alcoholic beer, and show them. That might be fine until you actually try and sell it after the class, and you're like in 7th, 8th grade. Schools don't really, smile too well when you're kind of doing those things. But I mean, so, just I've had in that entrepreneurial space inside of me for a long time, trying to be able to see opportunities and seeing, hey, there's a need. How do I actually be able to fill this? And that's where my life kind of going. My first company really started in 02, 03, and really being able to kind of get it started. And it happened to be one of my first big clients. It was a company that most people forgot about. It's MySpace, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My wife always says, she's like, you age yourself really well when you tell people that, one of your first clients was MySpace. I was like, oh, it is what it is. But yeah, man, I mean, I knew everyone's always like, oh, do everyone at I'm like, no, I don't, again, we kind of worked in there, but we helped them build one of the first social media ads that a lot of what social media ads are based off of today, right?
Sure.
Really being able to go through and monetize that web. So, kind of going through that whole aspect, I've monetized, like you said, I mean, like I've monetized over 35 trillion online impressions. I've controlled over $500 million in advertising. And one of the biggest things I learned was there's a huge difference between actually true engagement versus traffic, right? And so that's kind of where a lot of shift and me going through a transformation in my own life about 8 years ago led me to be at Standout Authority today, where, it's all about building that human connection, humanizing the way we show up online and allowing me to truly work with amazing men and women that honestly I read their books on 20 years ago, how to start my first company. Now I help them build advocates first and allow that byproduct to become clients.
I love that. We're going to dig into something you said that I want to highlight in a second.
Yeah.
First, Steve Heinen's here and he says your hair is absolutely fire. I was complimenting him on his hair prior to this. I was like, I'm growing mine out. There's lots of gray, but I was like, he's got a full-time barber. He actually has a whole entourage around him. You just can't see.
That's it. They'll come in 2 seconds. You'll see them shave the side just in case some grays start showing up, and they'll just get them right off the top.
That's awesome. And I see Matt LaMarche's here as well too. And if you guys are watching the live stream, feel free to jump in, ask any questions. One of the reasons I like bringing people like Joshua on is having knowledge shared openly like this, I think is what the world of the future is going to be like. Like you ran $500 million of creative. You understand the difference between impressions and engagement. That's what I want to focus on.
Yeah.
My agents called me 20 minutes ago and was like, hey, yeah, I'm checking out my impressions on an ad on Facebook that I launched on Friday. But I'm like, how many leads did you get?
Right.
Like X amount of leads. I'm like, okay, how many did you actually get conversations with? And she's like, well, I sent them to like another page and they had to click that. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. Like you need to have conversations with human beings. And I think a lot of digital agencies nowadays are selling hundreds of thousands of dollars of ad creative to companies that just don't know any better.
You know,
expand on the strategic deployment of resources and on that topic a little bit.
yeah. I mean, like, look, traffic's good for branding, right? I mean, that's great. But if your branding doesn't actually turn into opportunity, like, why are you doing it? Right. I mean, we live in a world that there's so much overwhelm of ads and content and like that. I mean, like, truly at the same time, content's not king anymore. Quality's queen, right? And I mean, this is a big thing that people understand. Like, we've all been there on a Friday night, been like watching Netflix, you're like, damn, there's nothing to watch. No, there's too much to watch, right? I mean, we have overwhelm. So like, how do we actually cut through that? And that was that big thing, right? Like you said it right on the nail, man, which was, conversations, right? Like, because a conversation creates a relationship opens up an opportunity. Most people try and go connect, pitch, sale. And it's like, wait a minute, like, what happened here? Like, that's not the world we live in anymore. Yeah. That worked years ago when I first started out, dude. It was like printing money. I mean, we did arbitrage back then. We bought low, sell high, and it was just going through, and we just click, and people were clicking. But there's a reason why, as human nature, and this is why for me, Justin, like I focus on not the LinkedIn algorithm, not the Facebook algorithm, not whatever, Twitter, TikTok, whatever it might be, because those algorithms change all the time. I focus on the one algorithm that doesn't change, it just evolves slowly with the time, which is the human algorithm. How do we, as human beings, do they show up, and how do we actually connect with them? Because that's the big thing. That's what people need to understand in today's world, especially post-COVID. We want that human connection. It's not about B2B, business to business, or business consumer, B2C. It's all about H to H, human to human, because every company is run by another human being. Most marketers forget that.
Yeah, it's funny in our space, especially say builders or new developers.
Yeah.
Often they go to digital agencies to solve for, well, they'll handle my marketing, my advertising, my landing pages, my conversions, my funnels. And we do that internally here because I want control of that, because I understand the sales process and how to convert those actual people. And I remember back when COVID happened, the aptitude for real estate investment went through the roof because you couldn't do anything else but buy a house. So everybody was out shopping. And then of May of last year in Canada, they raised the interest rates 5 times. I know you guys are lagging behind us a little bit, but you're still cranking up the rates. The buyer sentiment changed. We cut our Facebook advertising, and we started taking our ad dollars and reinvesting them in the human beings, because we realized the patterns had changed. The buyers weren't clicking on ads to buy anymore. They wanted market intelligence. So like we noticed that little shift. When did you notice the shift from mass digital creative, heavy ad spend to human? Like, what was that bridge that made you realize that you needed to go more towards the humans than just the profits piece?
I kind of saw it, but I mean, honestly, I wish I could say that it was watching the digital trends, because I mean, I was always ahead of knowing what's coming up next. And I was with this too, but it's about watching my own life, right? Being able to kind of go through. I mean, prior to what is it, like 8-9 years ago, running multiple different companies. I actually was running 10 at the time, monetizing everything, right? From every acronym, PPC, CPA, CPL, whatever,
KPIs,
and I was the guy that people went to be able to monetize their traffic. But I mean, based on what we're taught, supposed to be happy, right? We had the money, we had the freedom, but I was miserable. I mean, I had built a world where, honestly, my relationships were monetary. I had no vision about where I was going. I was about 45 pounds overweight, never been overweight in my life, and everything was this work-life balance. And I was just doing the thing to be able to monetize. And for me, when I went through a reset, I mean, like I really realized I found a group that I found a part of, and I was like, oh wow, there's other people that are making money and adding value to this world. There's a shift, right? And I had been surrounded with people like, well, I'm cool to make money, Josh, but don't tell us about what you're doing. We want to just live off you and be able to kind of go through. I went through a divorce, walked away from everything at 36.
Wow.
And because my lawyers were like, dude, this is going to take 3 years. And I said, no, we can always make more time. We can't make more money.
Mhm.
And that was a shift for me. And I wish I could say like, oh, it was instant, right? Because I was doing some stuff on LinkedIn, the traffic, maneuvering traffic. But first, after walked away at 36, moved back with my parents, a little bit under $1,000 my name. I was like, dude, I'm gonna be a life coach. I had my you want to talk about hair then? I had my man bun, my
Yeah.
mala beads, the pendulum had swung, and I was like, I'm gonna share.
Yeah.
And I realized really quickly too that when I wasn't the life coach, I didn't need to be. I need to be able to share on like a podcast like this with the right people. But at the same point, I needed to tie that human aspects into the digital world because we were losing grasp. And if we didn't start changing how this future was going to go, I mean, all the movies that we walk about of the corporations and everything taking over, I mean, that's truly which way we're going. We had to humanize the way. And when I started doing this on my own, Justin, I mean, like being able to go through just doing the things that my mom taught me how to be able to treat other human beings.
Mhm.
Start with appreciation, give someone a compliment, ask them a question, provide value, right? Things like that in starting these conversations, opportunity was amazing. And then we started seeing the higher and higher conversion ratios of people when you educate, inspire, and draw someone in and they choose to work with you, comparing to be sold into working with you, dude, the LTV is infinite. I mean, you don't have to continue to sell. And so that's where we really started seeing this opportunity that, no one wants to buy from the company anymore. They want to connect with who Josh is, who Justin is, whatever, because they see commonalities. And so that's where we're starting to see this shift, and we're going to continue to be able to see it. I think the report just came out on influencer marketing, and they saw from 2021 till now, it was like 13 billion. Now it's almost $17 billion in advertising. Because
Wow.
companies are going, I want the humans. I want to connect with the influencers on not just the TikTokers that can dance and throw on some sunglasses,
Mhm.
whatever, but the true influencers that businesses can relate to, because that's what people are looking for, the humans behind the brand.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I was watching who was it? It was Lex Friedman and Chamath
Okay.
Papatilia. And Chamath was actually saying, because I mean, he was one of the early investors in Facebook, and he was
Yeah.
saying that the creator economy and the individual, he's like, that's the next big shift. And he's like, people don't realize it quite yet, but he was saying to people like Lex Friedman that are building platforms, and he's talking about Mr. Beast. He's like, if you really look at what these guys are creating and the fact that they own it and they don't need any intermediaries. They don't need a gatekeeper to tell them that they're okay. They don't need a 360 deal like almost burned Rob Dyrdek a long, long time ago.
Yep.
The people are the actual capital, the human capital, right? And I think about something somebody asked me years ago, they're like, who's your competitor? I'm like, outwardly, you'd think brokerages and agents. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not competing with any of them because what I do is different than every other agent. And I can say that as like Amazon, maybe, but I'm like,
Yeah.
not even, because Bezos can only really scale profits like robots and tech. Bezos can't come here, and he doesn't have the relationships that I built over 20 years that when I call somebody or co-sign somebody or say something, what the weight that holds for a listing that I have or something. I think you're absolutely right, Joshua. I think that is the next big paradigm shift. I think it's super interesting to still be thoughtful about it and say, hey, you can still look at this as a business, but how do you bridge empathy and the human element with that? Because you and I know there's people that only care about making money. And I think those aren't the people I want to be around. I want to
Nope.
be around the people that are scaling people. So how do you bridge business and empathetic selling, I guess?
I mean, the first thing is, right, like, who am I working with? How am I actually being able to, draw on the right people? Because if someone's just trying to monetize this planet and not add value to it, I mean, like, look,
Yeah.
I don't need those people. Someone comes to me like, hey, Josh, can you help me get leads? Like, dude, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not here to help you get leads. Right. There's 10 other people behind me that are going to take your money because that's exactly what they're going to do. Right. We've got to be able to realize the people that are truly trying to change this world and add value to it for the right reasons. How do we do that? Gotta be honest. Like, I realized really quickly as human beings, if you look at how we are online, how we are offline, right? Being able to go through as human beings, we all make decisions on some degree of love or hate. We
Mhm.
do not make decisions being indifferent to something. And this is the big thing with like Chat GPT and everyone else, like, I'm gonna put out a whole bunch of content now because I can write it. as I mentioned, like, content's not king, right? It's quality is queen. How do you actually, an AI is never going to be able to grab that empathetic aspect to be able to go through. I don't want someone to be indifferent. If I'm indifferent online, or if I'm being able to connect, like, I'm just wasting their time and wasting my own, right? Like, so we need those. How do we actually be polarizing? And that's the piece. Put yourself, be 100% you, 100% of the time, on and offline, right? And it's hard to be able to say. I mean, just, I'm going to tell you, like, when I first went through my reset, going through, my reality was different, right? Because I was so caught up in what everyone else's perception of me was,
Mhm.
right? But it was not really, it was what my perception of their perception of me.
Yeah, for sure.
That drives everyone crazy.
It
And
does.
honestly, we
Yeah.
can't understand what someone else's perception is unless they freaking tell us.
Yeah.
And so that's that thing that we have to understand. If unless you start putting out there and going through, like, hey, this is me, what are we going to do? You'll start attracting the right people, and you'll start being able to go through, because people are so worried. Am I going to get that deal? Well, let me adjust myself a little bit and I'll close that deal. Well, half the time, then you got to play that whole role and put that mask on the whole time. It's exhausting. And then
Mm.
a little bit more, and then a little bit more. The next thing you know, you look in the mirror like, man, that's not even me. And I'm doing something for the money and not for anything else.
Yeah, man, I love what you're sharing because it leads me to a lot of conversations I've had recently. I do one-on-ones with everybody that works here to just be like, what are your goals? What do you want to do? So that I'm not telling you what you should be doing. Like, what
Yeah.
are your passions? And one of my agents got, very, very into a place where he's like high volume sales, new construction, everything else. He identified in himself that he just wanted to focus on a specific asset class, work with a very specific type of buyer, wants to spend time hunting, fishing, traveling. And I'm like, let's build
Love
that
that.
life. Like, let's build that world. Because if you end up doing this and making those micro adjustments you just talked about, you're going to end up resenting the work because it's preventing you from doing what you love. You have to start with what you love, and then reverse engineer success from there. And then the work will fall naturally into that kind of fifth place.
Yeah.
But for myself, it's faith, family, fitness, fun, finances,
Love
right?
that.
And it's the reverse in the world. It's finances and then everything else, right?
Always. And I mean, as we continue to see this world shift and change around us, I mean, it's becoming more and more, because I mean, they're having this adjustment from, I mean, there's middle class is actually going out the window. It's the lower class and upper class. And
Yeah.
and this is where the right people have to continue to be able to step up and be okay with people not liking you. It happens. I'd rather have someone hate me for what I stand for,
Yeah.
because guess what? If there's haters and I drink that haterade, people that love me and appreciate me and my advocates, they're going to stand up for me too. And we're all going to come together even that much better. So that's that piece that people have to understand, because people go through it. Like, what are we going to do? I mean, like, if you can, I had it all outside perception. People go, oh, like, all the companies, like, it made me unhappy. It made me to a point, Justin, where, like, I remember going into my office when, after I had my kids, I always wanted my doors open, right? To be
Sure.
able to, if I couldn't say it in front of my kids, I didn't want to say it at all. Right. And I remember the day that those doors shut, and that office not only became a sanctuary but a coffin that I would stare at the wall every single day for 8 hours straight. Even though those companies were running, just contemplating if I should be on this planet, or if the money I would leave for my kids would be more important to them. And I mean, that's what we're breeding as a world right now, that the almighty dollar is what should drive us. And honestly, studies continue to be able to show, if someone's happier at their work of what they do, they'll take less money for a greater happiness and fulfillment and alignment with the people that they work with.
Yeah, I think that's super strategic. Thinking about that, it makes me think about my job consistently, right? And wanting to create. Like, I like creating videos. I'm a
Yeah.
photographer just by hobbyist, and like, I shared. It's funny you say that, because I shared a photo on my Instagram the other day about photography, and
Yeah.
I wrote a whole post about how much it means to me. And it was actually my dad that told me I was a great photographer when I was a kid. The photo I shot when I was a kid was probably terrible, but it stuck with me. And I'm like, I try and capture moments with my camera.
Yeah.
And as I started thinking about that, I'm like, man, like, if I can incorporate that into the work that I do, then I've got a reason to want to keep doing the work that I do. And like, maybe there's things in my job that I don't enjoy doing. How do you align yourself with people that maybe like the things that you don't like? And how do you kind of create that masterful self that you're working towards?
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole piece, right? I mean, like, as human beings, we look for commonalities with our fellow human, right? Like we're going to go and like, oh, you're a dad, me too, right? They kind of go through. I bet we'll align better. And so that's that whole piece. Like when we're creating content or being able to go through, like we use the 10-20-70 method of creating content, which is 10% personal. Human beings connect with human beings, so you have to be able to put something out there like that, being able to tell that story. I've got a picture of me and my dad up here when I was like, I'm not like 4 or something like that, flying a kite that was in a newspaper. I'm like, you just talking about that, your dad talking about you taking a picture. I instantly got that, that inside and like when we go that we attach to emotions, it builds bonds with people, right? And so that's where we have to allow ourselves to be seen, right? People don't want to be heard anymore. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be felt. And so you have to be able to that 20% of your content. Yes, you can talk about your company, but don't be that person always talking about your company, right? Like talk about how you can, I'm sorry, talk about how you have helped someone so they can see themselves in the eyes of your past clients, not how you can. I don't want the guy that's going to be like, hey, I can help you sell 15 houses. Show me how you've sold 15 houses, right?
Yeah.
Right now I get it. Now I'm going to be able to go through. And we don't want to be the person always talking about ourselves. So like 20% and 70% add value, educate your audience. We all have this gift of knowledge of where we come from. If you're listening to this podcast, I guarantee you've learned something. You're special in this way. And so like take that information and share it with the world, because there are other people that wish they were listening live right now to Justin and I talking and could take the information that we're sharing. And so are you sharing it? Right. So that's that whole piece I want everyone to think about. Like, how do you find the alignment? Well, 1, you got to show up. 2, you got to be able to show up as yourself. And 3, you've got to be able to give the gifts that we get, which is knowledge. Share that knowledge freely with the rest of the world so we can all rise up, because we only rise up when we rise up together.
Very true. I almost lost myself a long time ago. So when you mentioned the reset, I know what that felt like, but I want to know, how did you, when you found your reset, find yourself again?
It was rough, man. I wrote first, it was like, I'm going to share my story. So I wrote my book, Balance is Bullshit, right? How to live more of an integrated life, getting rid of the whole work-life balance.
Yeah.
It was all the things that I shared, Justin, that I was too scared to, or I was told not to, right? Mm-hmm. From, making a bet. I was at the Playboy Club in Las Vegas, mm-hmm. penthouse, and like going through there, and we were playing craps, and like I made a bet with a buddy of mine to buy his code. I mean, and it cost me multi-millions of dollars, right? Wow. And I never shared these things. Or the best man at my first wedding, right, stole $1 million from me, right? Like these mm-hmm. are those things, like you don't talk about these mistakes as entrepreneurs, as business people. Are like, oh, well, if someone sees that I made these mistakes, you're like, oh, they're going to look down on me. No, it's just going to show that you're human, right? Like I wrote that book for me to be able to share, rather than to be able to educate anyone other than being able to go through. So that was a start, but I wasn't living 100% by the book, because I was still in a mini depression from the divorce, reset, all those other things. And if I have to be 100% honest, and I always try to be, for me to be able to find myself, to be able to go through, it was the love of my wife now, Rachel. I mean, she kind of came in, we were going through, and I was kind of doing my thing, and she was getting her MBA at the University of Texas, and told me like, hey, Josh, like I'm cool to meet you, but like I'm out in like 3 months. And I was like, I'm moving to Seattle to work for Microsoft. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Rocking. Like we can get together, and like there's an end date. I don't have to end it. She's gone. And then we kind of did the long distance, and I was like, I'm not sure about this, but there were times like I would go through, and I remember Justin, like we had been together for about a year, long distance, and really, sorry, I apologize. I get caught up a little bit when I talk about the side of it. I had gone through a hardship, like so entrepreneurs do. Like I was worried I wasn't going to be able to pay my bills that month. And most times I could always figure it out. But she was like, I'm moving back. I'm like, I don't know. Like let's pause. And she's like, what the hell? Why? Mm-hmm. And so I kind of dug deep, and I was like, okay, well, I can't pay the bills. And she goes, why wouldn't tell me these things. She's like, I know if I was in a reverse situation, you'd be like, I got you.
Hmm.
Because why can't I say that to you? Why can't I say I got you?
Hmm.
I had never had anyone in my life tell me that, Justin.
Yeah.
I got you. I'd always been the person that always took care of everyone else. And that was a shift, man. And that opened me up and changed my life moving from that moment forward.
Yeah, what a difference that can make, right? I mean, you can get around people that tear you down. You can get around people that lift you up. I can understand the framework. Just being a guy, right, and thinking, oh, you have to be the provider, and you built all these frameworks up around you. And sometimes when you're not looking for something and it shows up, it can actually unlock a very, very bright future. But I think that self discovery is a big part about why you are where you are today, and you have that
Yeah.
balance and that joie de vivre where you're looking to find that perfect version of yourself. I don't think it's anything anybody should hide. And I think people should get inspired by what you're sharing, to share the journeys and the discoveries that you made along the way.
Yeah.
Because when you do that and you humanize yourself, the people that are like you tend to find you and share reality. And I think you get the right people around you.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the tactical pieces that you learned
Okay.
about growth and scaling. I mean, first, explain your LinkedIn and what that means to you, and explain how you even built it to where it is today.
Yeah, man. I mean, LinkedIn was that platform that I saw an opportunity, right? Everyone was on there. As I mentioned before, everyone goes, oh, it's a place, it's a B2B platform, right? It's a place to be able to post my resume or get a job.
Yeah.
And I mean, I saw an opportunity prior to everything. I was using a lot of the traffic I used to control to be able to kind of, I was like, okay, cool. I see an opportunity, right? Like this is the whole piece of missing out. I was like, I'm going to take my traffic, I'm going to create a LinkedIn article and I'll boost that article to 80,000, 100,000 views, right? And then people are like, oh, wow, like, human nature, right? Really understand that, like, oh, I just want to reach out and say thank you to everyone that liked my recent article. Like, oh, damn, I didn't check it out. It's 100,000 views. Like, that's what we're trained to do. Social companies have been doing this for 20 years. Like, if we see something that has a lot of views or a lot of likes or an influencer that has a lot of followers, we're like, oh, well, they must know what they're talking about, right?
Mhm.
But a lot of that time, that stuff is bought. It's fake being able to go through. So you really have to be able to look behind the person. And so that's where we started shifting out, which was LinkedIn as an opportunity for human beings, right? And they built this platform, right? When Microsoft purchased it, that's one of the biggest things they liked about it being able to go through, which was that human capital, people being on there and really being able to shift. And you can be a light on that platform. And that's kind of what we started doing. How do we actually go through, educate, inspire, and draw on that audience, which was how do we start conversations? You know, every single person in this world, no matter who you are, where you live in the world, posts online for one reason above all else. Do you know what that is, Justin?
No, tell me.
All right. So if you've ever watched, like the movie Social Dilemma on Netflix, stuff like that, they've been conditioning us over like last 20 years. And I remember my mom watched. She's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's crazy." But we've all been conditioned to be able to look for those dopamine hits we all get when someone likes or comments our post. After that,
Yeah.
it's the branding, it's the getting in clients, being able to go through them. So I said, okay, well, if that's what we're conditioned for, how do we become dopamine dealers on this platform, right? The beautiful thing on LinkedIn is I can see everyone that looks at my profile. I can see on most platforms everyone that engages on my content. Well, do the things my mom taught me. Hey, Justin, I saw you looked at my profile recently. I just want to reach out and say thank you. Too often we don't appreciate that. Love to be able to connect with you and find out what pushed you to check me out.
Mm-hmm.
No, still not. If someone looks at you, looks you up, looks at your profile, that's an opportunity to start a conversation, right? And so when you appreciate someone for something they've never been appreciated for, it creates a stopgap in their pattern, right? You and I know as marketers, we got to create pattern breaks. And that's what it is. It allows them now to be able to hear us. And so that's what we started being able to do, starting with appreciation. Thank you for looking at my profile. Thank you for engaging my content. At the same time, we talked about that dopamine hit, right? Like if you posted on LinkedIn, I'm going to reach out and say, hey, Justin, I saw your recent post, man. If I want to get your attention behind your podcast, saw your recent post or saw your recent post about Josh and you talking about LinkedIn, man. Love the conversation. Thank you so much, right? Again, liking, comment, and then reaching out to appreciate. That opens up that conversation. Now we can take it to the next level because LinkedIn gives us the tools to be able to see our ideal audience, to identify them, and then also see which of them have posted online in the last 30 days.
Hmm.
So when you start being able to go through these things, that's where we started leveraging LinkedIn and started really building advocates first that are going to continue to be able to show up for us. And then go through a couple of other steps of building relationship, right? Like my mom always taught me, like right now, like I'm sitting here, I've zoned in the whole time. I'm like, dude, he's got shoes behind him. Like, give someone a compliment, right? You could be able to see the shoes and stuff like that. I
Yeah,
showed you my closet. I've got a massive, my wife now limits me on, I can only buy one pair of Jordans a month or I get in trouble
that's
because I
awesome.
bought too many. But I give someone like, dude, love the shoes behind you, right?
Yeah,
Give someone a compliment. Open my on LinkedIn. A compliment is an endorsement,
sure.
right? And that opens up the conversation. So these are the ways that we started doing this and being able to go through. And when it all of a sudden we had these thousands and thousands of conversations happening all at once organically, they naturally engage on your content and create massive opportunity with the right people that are business decision makers, with people that have the money to be able to buy your products or services because the average income is $120,000 a year on LinkedIn or higher, more than any other platform, and an educated audience because the audience on LinkedIn, 50% or more of them have a college degree or higher. So
Hmm.
for me, it was a win-win-win. I'm starting conversations with amazing people that can make the decision, be able to afford it, and educated enough to be able to know what they're buying.
I think that's super key. And I'll highlight few key things. I'm going to ask you two questions about that feed thing. First, I
Yeah.
want to point out one of my favorite creators, Christina Smallhorn. You're hilarious, Christina, your profile photo with you and your husband's back. She actually runs a massive YouTube channel and she's never bought engagement, not ever. Gag. She posts online to get
Yeah.
noticed. She craves attention. I want to use Christina as a little bit of an example of what you're talking about, where she showed up in some clubhouse rooms. I noticed she was giving back to the people that were there. We developed a bit of a friendship. Then I noticed she was going live every single Sunday. So I turned on notifications, and every time she went live, I jump in. I tried to create engagement on her page, joined her YouTube group, started to share that group with other people. We literally probably took 6 to 8 months. Out of random kindness, one day I'm literally working on a thumbnail for something, and she jumps into my comments and she's like, "Hey," DMs me. She's like, "Send me your thumbnail." And then I see her dot, 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 bubble, bubble, bubble. And then she sends me a thumbnail. She's like, "I just did it for you." She's like,
That's
"This is
awesome.
what you need to do. Rule of thirds, you in the middle, fire on the one side, whatever." And I'm like, so kind. And I thought about what you were explaining about creating conversation and engagement. It is so easy if you are actually just being a human and not just DMing her randomly when she doesn't know you and say, "Hey, make me a thumbnail," to
Yeah.
build relationship where she does something like that. So thank you, Christina, for doing that.
Dude, that's awesome.
But I love how tactical you are about it. You mentioned LinkedIn has a feature to be able to see your right fit clients that have posted in the last 30 days. Where is that feature?
Yeah. So it is their paid feature, Sales Navigator, right? Being
Okay.
able to go through. But I mean, I'm telling you, this is the real quick thing for me with LinkedIn. If you have a product or service that doesn't cover the $99 a month for Sales Navigator, it might not be the right platform for you.
Sure.
Right? Like if you're just selling widgets, kind of there's Instagram's amazing for those kind of things. TikTok, if you can dance, right? Go through, but I
Sure.
can't dance.
I
So,
can't. Well, back in the day, the old
yeah,
Justin.
me too, right? I believe, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But so that's that one thing, and it's an amazing platform that most people don't access enough because I can go through there and be able to find the right people. I can be able to look at groups, what groups they're part of, what their likes, their dislikes based off of that. How long they've been in the business, when they've changed jobs, and the biggest thing is too, who posted, because the average person gets less than 1% engagement on LinkedIn. So
Sure.
if I like and comment on your post and then reach out and appreciate you for posting, not only if you didn't post it, let's say you got a team, that team still takes time, energy, and effort to be able to do those content. And they're like, dude, wow, yeah, it makes someone feel good.
Yeah.
And I mean, that right there creates an opportunity. There's not enough of that in this world of people just trying to add value. I mean, and that's how just I know, I see massive, just shift and change in what we do every day. Because yes, do we help our clients create opportunity? 100%. But I've got clients. I don't know if you. I know he's up in Canada too. Is Dan Sullivan, strategic coach.
Yep.
Dan's an amazing individual, and I remember one time as we were, working with Dan's account, being able to go through him, he reached out and just said thank you to someone for engaging on his post. And I'll be honest, man, the response we got back was something I never expected. Right, the the person on the other side was like, thank you so much for appreciating the little thing that I took for granted, right? Liking your post. You'll never know what it means to me.
Mm-hmm.
Today I had planned on it being my last.
Wow.
And you gave me new hope in this world to continue to forge on. Thank you. Right. And that's the one thing we don't understand. It's a little bit of our appreciation as influencers, as business owners, as we continue to be able to grow our followings, whatever it might be, whatever we're trying to influence. If we forget about the people that helped us get to where we are, what are we doing this for anyway? Right. And so those little shifts and changes, those vibrations change the world. And so like, I know that not only are you and that's why I always talk about it, man. I say, look, I'm here to be able to help my clients, but advocates first. And allow that byproduct become clients, because that's the only way that we're truly going to be able to create amazing opportunity communities and, well, as we always call it, our family.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Christina actually has a question for you. She asked, how do you deal with people on your posts who are just trying to start a fight? She has some world famous YouTube trolls. Her clapbacks are amazing, but how do you deal with people that troll you?
I mean, that's the thing, right? It happens. Like, these people are going through. Am I going to try and continue the fight? I'm going to appreciate them for the comment. Wow, that's amazing that you think that way. Good job, right?
Thank you.
Thank you, right? Being able to go through. If you show that they've gotten to you, look, I mean, that's them winning, kind of going through. Like, I'm fine. I said at the beginning, like, hey, I want people to love or hate me. That's fine. Because again, my advocates are going to stand up for me too. Sometimes I don't even have to do that, because people are going to step up and be like, dude, I can't believe you'd even say that about Christina. Right. Like, this, and this. And that's when you know what you're doing is really creating massive positive change in this world.
Yeah. She's doing that in a big way, actually. So she's fighting for affordability in a very big way, pushing back against a lot of what's happening with BlackRock and the corporatization of real estate. So everybody go check out Christina's channel. And
dude, I just wrote her name down as well too, because don't worry, I'm going to be, I just corrected the grammar of the post to make it better.
That's funny. Actually, her best line, and I love this line, I can't use it because I feel like I'm stealing from her, but I get roasted on my YouTube all the time when I do my market updates.
Yeah.
And I thank them and I thank them. And I actually push the engagement, because the more they engage, the better it is for the algorithm.
Yeah.
But she says to them, whatever she says, then she goes, have the day you deserve. It's not necessarily bad or a good thing. It just is what it is. Right. So,
and again, they probably will. And this is, it's funny that we talk about this, because, I talk about this with my kids. Yeah. And I mean, this is that whole piece. It's amazing that we have to deal with this with adults, but I mean, even with kids, right? Like, I mean, my kids are like, my son's like, oh, well, this one kid, at school, whatever, got mad at me and, told me my Jordans were fake. And I was like, one, I'm a sneakerhead. Like, dad's getting a little upset too, but you don't know what he's dealing with at home, what's going on.
Abuse or who knows, right?
Yeah. He's like, oh, I'm going to get mad at him. I can't believe he, I'm like, just realize, man, everyone's got something going on that sometimes they don't even know about. And that's just how they let go. And we live in a world that we've created where a lot of people now, their only outlet is to be able to go on there. And as the people, the leaders that you, Justin, myself, Christina are doing, sometimes we got to let them vent and let them just like you said, enjoy the day that you deserve.
Yeah, it's amazing. We'll leave that portion there. I think that's very thoughtful for people to think about. Something I've seen in jiu-jitsu many times is like, if somebody's pushing into you, it's only a fight if you're pushing back. Right. So that's a big piece of it. And the energy exchange.
See, now we got another commonality. I'm like, dude, I love jiu-jitsu. It's amazing. My son's in it right now. And he wanted to get in because he goes, I want to learn how to fight. I'm like, cool. I'm going to be into jiu-jitsu. I'm going to tell them that that's how you want to be able to do it. Let's see where it goes.
Well, phenomenal, actually. So every podcast guest that comes on gets a book from me. So I'm going to be buying you Breathe by Hickson Gracie. Do you like audio or paperback? I love asking the guests that.
I mean, again, I have books, if you show my wall, all over here. So, I mean, paperbacks are amazing. I mean, of course, I listen to audio when I'm working out or something like that too. But I mean, a good paperback, you can't beat.
Yeah. You'll love that book. It's actually about flow. I'm going to get into the rapid fire questions. I got to get you out of here. I could talk to you for hours on end. Everybody check out Joshua. His links will be below as well. But I want to get into a couple questions I love asking my guests, because I see through lines and commonalities, and I love the people that are in my community. So thank you for making the time. First question I always have is, how has failure shaped your life?
It's why I'm where I am today, right? I don't look at failure as failure, right? I look at failure as an opportunity of learning. And if I allow failure to be able to come into my life, it would have been over a long time ago, right? Being able to go through there. So, I mean, that's the piece, like learn from it, stand back up, continue to be able to go on. I've always been and I'll leave it at this too. My mom always said, I was like Icarus, I always flew too close to the sun, right? And I'd fall back down. And thank God I continue to get back up. And that's that whole piece. Like it's failure is an opportunity, right? It's a glass half full in my book that allows you to continue to be able to fill it back up.
That's amazing. What are you learning right now that excites you?
To be honest, I continue. One of the biggest things that I'm spending more time is my kids are neurodivergent. I know I've talked about my kids a little bit here and there, but so my son has severe ADHD, my daughter has dyslexia, and I've always worked to be able to find the things to be able to help and support them. But now I'm learning how I see it within myself that I never noticed before. Because guys like you and I, like they didn't have a lot of the stuff that that we have knowledge now on how and how can we actually use the natural things that are out there to be able to help us, be able to align. I always saw it as a superpower within myself, but now I'm understanding it even more. So yeah, I wish I could say like, oh, it's social media or LinkedIn or selling, but I'm like, honestly, those things come second nature. It's like the human aspect of how we are and who we are is what really excites me these days.
I like that. What is one life hack that you wish you knew 20 years ago that you know now?
See this thing right here?
Yeah.
Biggest thing you can do. What's the first thing that the average person in the world, I don't care where you are, does when they wake up?
I know the answer to this question. Everybody picks up their phone. Yeah. I think we have the same phone case.
I mean, that's that whole piece, right? Like, so like, yeah, 20 years ago, yeah, phones were just coming out, but I mean, still it's one of those pieces that's changed my life and shifted.
Sure.
Because the first thing that we do is reach that phone. We set precedents. The outside world is more important than us by looking at our phones. The world didn't stop spinning. Our companies didn't blow up and our family's okay. Because guess what? It wouldn't be on social media. And it's not going to be in a text. They're going to call us. So if any of that stuff happened, you're going to get a call. So one of the biggest things that I had learned that I wish I'd known sooner was, look, put yourself first, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. So making sure that I don't touch my phone for the first hour or two before I wake up, really being able to go through, to be able to work out, to meditate, to be able to read, to spend time with my family, all before I take on the rest of the world, because that way I can have enough power within myself to be able to share with the world.
Absolutely key. I'm going to be thinking about you because I've been working on that every single day. And it's funny because sometimes it happens when you don't even realize it. And then it's in your hand. And I keep a checklist to see what I did every single day. Right. And it's funny how it becomes second nature. But when you don't have it, that dopamine hits. It's dopamine resets, I think, are super important. Do you ever take like a complete day off screen, social media, everything?
Oh yeah. My therapist pushed me to do that, a while back. And I was like, okay. Because I mean, look, I'm like everyone else. We go through it. It's a natural thing, especially being in social media, things of that nature. It's, trying to be able to watch in. You don't even realize that you're doing it. And all of a sudden you're like, I put my phone over there. My wife's like, your phone's in your hand. I'm like, what are you talking about? And like, that's like, oh, well, there it is. So yeah, I think it's the thing that we all have to be able to do, doing these resets, pulling it away. And, how are we going to be able to shift and change the energy around us if we're focused on what's happening outside of us? So
makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time, Joshua. We'll definitely get you on another future episode. Everybody go check out his links below, and you have the day that you deserve, which is a great day, Joshua.